Alright, in this video we're going to be continuing on with activity 133 called constraining a sketch. I'm going to be starting with number 9, and what they want us to do is they want us to create a new design file. So we've got a new design file untitled here, and they want us to create a sketch. So as you look at number 10, first off they want us to use millimeters as our units. Let's go ahead and get those changed right now. I can go ahead and here to change the units, hit drop down to millimeter and say OK, and then I can go ahead and create a new sketch. So I always typically use the front plane. In Inventor that used to be called the XY plane, so it's just what I kind of become familiar with, unless there's a different orientation I want my model to start off in. Okay, we're going to create a sketch within this particular file. So I'm going to take a line along my x-axis. I'm going to go vertically, and then back horizontally. I'm going to go at an angle up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cross over the y-axis here. I'm going to try to maintain a little bit of symmetry, and you'll notice that as you draw, see these blue dashed lines that are kind of helping me line up. If you don't see those, you're not going to click on anything. You're just going to move your mouse over to kind of touch it, and then it'll automatically pick up that point. So the same kind of thing here is you notice it's not really giving me a stopping place for that one. So I'm going to pick up this point, and then I can kind of see and how it helps me with maintaining where that's going to be. Again, I'm just trying to maintain some symmetry and finish this out. It's not going to be perfect, but that's what the constraints we are going to add. So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at automatic constraints that are applied. And you can see from my screen here, there's all these little symbols that have kind of popped up around there. A lot of perpendicular symbols, which are kind of like the T-shaped looking symbols right there. You can also see they also match up here as well. So you'll see here is the perpendicular, the kind of T shape showing up there. So that means there's going to have to be a 90-degree angle so that is maintained at those corners. And that's the thing they want us to do in step number 11, kind of reviewing these constraints that were automatically applied. So we can see we got a horizontal. Again, we can compare them to the constraints are here. Maybe good to click on constraints because these actually tell you what they are. And these symbols that you see next to the names are actually what's matching. So here you'll see there's the horizontal vertical. Horizontal is the one that looks like this. Vertical lines will be one. We don't have any showing up right here on our sketch right now, but we would end up having maybe a horizontal constraint on some of these lines here. But here we got a horizontal constraint, we got a lot of perpendicular, we got two parallel constraints. So these two lines, and when you hover over them, you'll notice that they will highlight which lines that are maintaining this relationship with each other. And that's exactly what we're kind of, what Fusion is helping us kind of to look at as we do that. Okay, number 12 says create a quick hand sketch to describe the constraints that were automatically applied, except the coincident constraints. So the coincident constraint looks like this. So there's coincident. Even if you leave your mouse on top of any of the icons there, it will also tell you what they are. But a coincident constraint, so that would be like any time. So when I move my mouse to that corner right there, that is a coincident constraint that's showing up. It doesn't show up until I kind of hover my mouse over that particular area. But here, when two elements are controlled by a single constraint, somehow represent the dependencies on your sketch. So what they kind of show here on the little icon is that you may go through and kind of circle, like for here this corner, you end up having some lines here that will kind of maintain where are the two lines, like here, where are the two constraints that are kind of maintaining like here the parallel, you would maybe circle the parallel icon, maybe draw a little line, circle the other one, so that way you can kind of tell these two are connected to each other, or they are dependent on one another. They have a relationship pretty much together. Okay, so it says for number 13, investigate how the constraints affect the sketch behavior by selecting individual lines and points and dragging each with your mouse. So here, like let's use this last one that I looked at, is here these guys are going to be being maintained parallel to each other. So parallel doesn't mean that they move together, so that would be something, that would be a constraint known as being collinear. If we wanted it that when I drug this line up, this one would come with it. But if I drag this line here, I can't move side to side, and I have to maintain this 90-degree perpendicular constraint. So you can kind of tell, and like this line here, I can't really turn it. Even if I grab the endpoint, I can't turn it to make it vertical. So it's got a horizontal constraint on there, and I can't, move its position. I can't make it a diagonal line. It's maintaining horizontal constraints. So this one here, this one has to stay vertical because of the perpendicular constraint between the two lines that it's set right here. So that's kind of the thing that we're kind of looking at, is when it comes to the constraints, you know, what are the things that are happening to those lines as you kind of draw. So it says remove a few of the constraints one at a time and observe how the sketch behavior changes. So some things here that we may want to do is, let's go ahead and let's delete this perpendicular constraint. You can right click on any icon here, on any of the geometric constraint icons, say delete, and then when I go through and I drag, or if I take my corner on my mouse, you'll notice that as I move this corner, we're not maintaining a 90-degree angle anymore. These are still maintaining those because on the other side, because those constraints are still in the play. I removed the one constraint that has to happen. So those are the types of things that we see. The horizontal constraint, I can end up deleting. This one here, it's probably still going to maintain horizontal because of the perpendicular constraints. So, and I can also delete these. And now I can go through and drag that bottom line. It's no longer going to stay horizontal. And that's going to be something that I can do to kind of control. Okay, so now for number 15, this is just, you know, some of the things to look at, and you can go into a little bit more depth if you wanted to kind of explore some of these, but that's really kind of what we're looking at. You know, you'll see those different constraints get applied in each one. So it says discard the previous sketch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say finish sketch, and one thing that I can do one of two ways. Let me go ahead and show you this. I'm going to say let me undo finish sketch here. I can highlight and drag all these lines, and I can press delete or on my keyboard, or I could right click and use the delete menu, and that will get rid of my sketch. So that's probably the best way to do it. You could also finish the sketch, and you could have deleted the sketch from down here in the model history tree. All right, so here we go to number 16, and as we go along, we're going to move down through to, looks like number 16 is split up in a few different parts, and which may add some length to this video, but we will stop right before we get to 17, which is where we do some manual constraints. So again, we're doing some automatic constraints as we do that. And here 16A says we're going to place line 1. It's going to be on the x-axis and allowing the software to suggest a horizontal constraint and automatically constrain the line. So I'm going to use the line tool. Again, we're not tying to the origin, so I'm going to start here, and you're going to see that even as you draw, here we go, maybe if I draw it a little longer, you'll see a blue kind of temporary constraint show up, which is the horizontal. Again, if you look right by the 0 degree box, you'll see that kind of light blue there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shorten this line just a little bit, maybe right about here, and there we're going to see there's that horizontal constraint automatically being added. So here we're going to, from there, we're going to go ahead and draw line 2. We're going to select the endpoint of the first line here on the left side, and we're going to slowly move our cursor. So if I go to diagonal, but if you notice when I start to go vertically, you'll see I end up getting this snap that happens. And when I click, you saw that little 90-degree marker, and then it turns right into a perpendicular constraint as that happens. Okay, line 3, I'm going to go across. You'll see there's the little blue kind of corner in there, noting 90 degrees like in geometry. And we would go through and we can click, and that'll automatically set that perpendicular constraint as we draw. Okay, we're going to add a diagonal line. And the diagonal line, so as kind of noted here, we will kind of place it. So if you notice, it's really going to, you know, there'll be some geometry. Looks like there's some placements. So things like the origin, it'll try to constrain. I'm going to try to stay away from those for right now. But you add a diagonal line, you'll notice that, you know, no constraints really get applied. So diagonal lines are something that, you know, don't really, that you can kind of control, but later. Then when I go up here, you're going to notice that I end up having a perpendicular constraint set as well from that particular point. So it's creating that perpendicular constraint with line 3. Okay, as you go along, we're going to place this line 6 slightly off horizontal, so something like this. And then we're going to end up completing the sketch in letter G. So we're going to end up going straight down, so maintaining a parallel constraint with line 5. We're going to go down at an angle here, so which will have a perpendicular constraint with line 4. We're going to go across here for line 9, and this will maintain a parallel constraint with line 3. And then I'm going to go through and connect the sketch for line 10 to go through and to finish. So this is where where we're going to be finishing. So again, your polygon may not look exactly like what's on the screen, but again, you want it to be somewhat close to what we have. All right, at this point, we're going to stop. This ends out with number 16 and with the sub-steps that are associated with number 16. In our next video, we'll take a look at manual constraints and start up with number 17 on activity 133, constraining a sketch.